Hello, everyone. I think it's time to start. Thank you for coming to attend my International Volunteer Geographic Workshop. We're working with a lot of different people to bring this here with you today. We're working with the National Science Foundation of America, the Pan American Institute of Geography. We're working with NERGIST, working from Jamaica, and with the LIC in Brazil to bring together what I think is a really good workshop that I think you will enjoy. So, how about we just start out with introductions? My name is Mason Jones. I'm a graduate student at Texas Tech University, and I'm also a research intern with the Pan American Institute of Geography. Here with me, I have Dan Council and Sawyer McCarley, who are my co coordinators of this project and will be helping me along with any questions that you may have as we go along. If you have any questions, please just post them into the chat and one of us will get to you as quickly as possible. As for our other participants, we have Jean Wintmut, Simone Michelle Lloyd, and um,
Alfred, Alfred Cow.
for Cal. And Jean Wintmut, who just spoke, is our um, leader from Page, who can give us a short introduction of what we're trying to do here.
Okay. Thank you, Mason, and welcome everyone. It's great to see so many people involved in this workshop. It's going to be a lot of fun and a great learning experience. I am Jean Winmute Parcher, and I am the Vice President of the Geography Commission for the Pan American Institute of Geography and History. And that is, if you're not familiar with it, it is a specialized agency or organization, I'm sorry, it's not our agency, organization of the Organization of American States. And Alfred Cow from Belize, the country of Belize is a member of PAGE. That's what we call it for short, Pan American Institute of Geography and History. And Jamaica, with Representative Simone Lloyd, is an observing nation of PAGE. And one of the things we do within PAGE is we give out small grants for different research studies involving either geography, cartography, history, or geophysics. And with that, we work together. Now, this project is actually funded by the National Science Foundation, and it was through a grant that Dr. Patricia Solis, who is the co-founder of the YouthMappers organization, put together this research proposal. I'm one of the co-principal investigators, and the research proposal is what are the opportunities and barriers to integrate volunteer geographic information into official geographies. And so volunteer geographic information will definitely includes information coming from OpenStreetMap, might include from coming from YouthMappers. And then we have student interns, and they're working on, as Mason introduced, Mason's one of them. He's working on graduate studies at Texas Tech. Dan is working on undergraduate studies at Ball University, and Sawyer is working at undergraduate studies at Clemson University. And they've been working, Dan's been working closely with Alfred Cowell in Belize, doing interviews, doing small projects, just really understanding more of what the situation is in Belize with official geographic data and with volunteer data. And Mason and Sawyer have been working very closely with Simone Lloyd in Jamaica. So this is kind of the culmination of a lot of the work and also the practice of doing a mapathon, which Mason and Dan and Sawyer are going to lead up tonight. We had loved to do this in person, but with COVID-19, wasn't possible for Mason and Dan and Sawyer to travel to Belize and Jamaica, so we're doing it virtually. So with that, we're going to have Simone and Alfred as guest speakers. And I think before we go further on that, I think, Simone, you wanted to say a few things about the registration and about you know, we'd like to have everybody turn on their video, and we're just going to do kind of a show of hands, physical show of hands, not your little hand in the reactions, of like what countries you're from. I think I'll turn this over to Simone. But before I do that, as Mason mentioned in the chat, if you have any questions, what we would really like to have everybody do in the chat at some point, earlier, better, is put in your name, the institution or the university you're studying under, the country, and your email. And then we will actually, we're recording this tonight, and we will actually then also download the chat. And so that way we can have a better idea who's attended, and try to build a community of practice here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Simone.
Thanks, Jean. Okay. Thank you, Jean. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out to join us this evening. We know that usually this is the time when you would normally be with your family, relaxing, hopefully, or maybe you're having dinner usually at this time. So we really thank you for taking the time to join us this evening to go through this workshop with us, this exciting workshop, as the tertiary students from the USA will be guiding us through how it is that volunteer geographic information can be very useful. What it is, how can it be used, how it is being used, and then to get you involved in terms of using the OpenStreetMaps platform. So welcome. I am going to share screen.
Okay.
Thank you for registering for the workshop. It means that you've registered, which is why you're here, and you've been provided access. Given the feedback in terms of registration, we're seeing that an overwhelming amount of the registrants are from Jamaica. We are joined by Belize also. We should be having persons from Nigeria, also Nepal, India, Rwanda, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire. I'm sure I didn't pronounce that correctly, which is bad. But yes, so we should be having quite a mix of persons from different countries joining us this evening. So in addition to Jean explaining that Dan, Sawyer, and Mason are tertiary students from different universities who are delivering this workshop this evening, we are here seeing that we are joined by different tertiary students in Jamaica. In particular, from MICO, UTech, UE. We also have tertiary students joining from Belize also. And so we're really looking forward to sharing with you the work that they have done, they're doing as mappers, how it is that you can get engaged. So we're primarily focusing on students this evening. And so that is the reason why we decided to have the workshop in the evening. So in having the workshop in the evening, we thought that this would be the most ideal time that you wouldn't be in classes, although we know that some of you would have had classes at this time. So a big thank you to the lecturers. We're seeing lecturers on, and we thank you very much. So Mrs. Smith, Mr. Newville, Dr. Nelson, thank you so much for joining us and for being a part of this workshop and for allowing your students to join in. I know some of you would have had classes at this time, so thank you for taking this opportunity to learn in this forum. Importantly, we note that given the feedback, most persons, well, I wouldn't say more, 40% of the persons would have had prior knowledge with regards to OpenStreetMaps and the use of volunteer geographic information. So it's not a case whereby we're starting off from scratch. Some persons are learning for the first time, which is good. Others, I'm sure, will be expanding on your knowledge, given what we'll be going through during this evening. As per the course, or the workshop outline, which was shared with you, we'll be going through OpenStreetMaps. You'll be introduced to that. We take note that a significant amount of persons are not new to OpenStreetMaps, whereas some are. And so we'll be trying to bridge that gap between those who have never been exposed before and those who have been, and then getting you all together in terms of exposing you to all that will be carrying you through this evening in terms of creating your accounts and how to do online mapping using the OpenStreetMaps platform. Importantly also, we are joined by team members from Jamaica's National Emergency Response GIS team. And we're very happy that they're able to join us this evening. We'll be sharing with you the work that NERGIST has been doing in Jamaica and the work that we continue to do so that you're familiar with what we're doing in terms of providing geospatial support to Jamaica's efforts in the area of disaster and emergency. And this is a primary area in which OpenStreetMaps assists in terms of providing volunteered geographic information with regards to disasters and also emergencies. So we'll be covering that also this evening. Good. Thank you. So we hope that you will benefit significantly from this evening's activities, that you'll be learning, and that at the end of it, we'll be having a number of persons who will be very interested in joining the realm of becoming a volunteer youth mapper. And we take note that majority, at least over, what is this? Yes, 50% of the persons who have registered indicated that they have interest. And I'm sure that by the end of the session, we'll be having many more persons joining from the not so sure. All right. And we also take note that we already have some OpenStreetMappers who are joining us. 3 of them are online who will be assisting in terms of delivering the workshop. I will be joined by others who will also be participating. So we're thankful that you're with us. And I'll hand back over to Mason as we go into the presentations.
Thank you, Simone. I'm going to share my screen now. I'm not sure if you're seeing it. Somebody tell me. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so this is the International Volunteer Geographic Information Workshop. VGI for short, just makes it a lot simpler. As I mentioned before, I'm Mason Jones, and along with Dan Cancel and Sawyer McCarley, we're here to present this workshop to you, and hopefully you will learn something. This was provided to us by the Pan American Institute of Geography and History and was funded by the National Science Foundation. But that says nothing about the tremendous amount of help that Simone Lloyd and Alfred have given us in making this event a possibility. So the primary tool that YouthMappers use is a program called OpenStreetMap. It's a freely available crowdsourced mapping software that's available online through internet browsers. So anyone is allowed to come in and make changes to a map as long as it's been validated by someone else. So it's a nonprofit organization that's been working to create these maps just for the betterment of people all around the globe for quite some time now. So the website just uses these point, line, and areas, and then you can define each of these features as buildings or restaurants in your neighborhood, the roadways to get around, anything that you would need to normally describe a geography. You just use these tools that are available on OpenStreetMap. And its simplicity is its biggest asset. Almost anyone can just hop on a computer and use these simple tools to create their own maps of like their own communities or whatever they need to work with. A lot of companies depend on this data for their own maps. So a few of them are Amazon uses it to update their drivers maps, especially in other countries. Apple uses it, Microsoft, Facebook uses it. Esri, the GIS corporation, they have ways to download the data as well. Pokemon Go, if anyone still plays that, they they used OSM data, and you could actually go into the OSM map to make changes to it, and it would affect the game in real time. Garmin, the GPS corporation, they also use it. BBC, Uber, the city of New York, or cities in Indonesia, all these places use OpenStreetMap data to support their own internal GIS data frameworks. One of my favorite events that happened with OSM was in its early days. About the system was founded in, I think, 2004, and 10 years or 6 years after that, Haiti got struck by a pretty devastating earthquake. I think it was a 7.1, and it just crippled the city at the time. There were no maps of the city except at this pretty limited before picture that you see. So when aid workers tried to get into the city, they were just met with huge logistical problems of trying to find out who is living where in the city, what streets are damaged, how do we get across to where these people need medicine, where they need food and water. So the OSM community really stepped in at that point and created this entirely different map of the city that enabled those aid workers to get where they needed to be. I even have a little video of the process as it happens. Pretty interesting to watch. This is Haiti before the earthquake. And it might be pretty small, but you can tell that there's just a ton of activity happening within the span of 5 days already. So much of the city has been mapped out. This just goes to show you the power that crowdsourced mapping can have in an event of a crisis, or just in an event of trying to get extra help creating mapping data. The validation process is pretty simple to make sure that the maps are accurate and not being toyed with in any way. Dan, I think you had something you wanted to say here.
Yeah, so since anyone effectively can edit OpenStreetMap, there's kind of a concern about the quality of it. So they do actually have a system in place to allow for validation to happen. So when people map, we have validators that actually, they go back, they look at what's been done, and they make sure everything is to a certain quality. YouthMappers, we actually have our own system. It's called the YouthMappers Validation Hub. It was founded in George Washington University. So it's a group of student mappers, and they work only on YouthMappers related projects, just to kind of ensure that the projects that are made under our name have a certain high standard of data quality. That's just what I wanted to say.
So the way that YouthMappers and OpenStreetMap connect to humanitarian organizations is through another program called HOT OSM. So HOT is an international team dedicated to humanitarian action and community development through open mapping. What they do is they look at places that have been struck by disasters and try to reduce the risks of harm after those disasters by creating maps to support aid efforts and help locals be able to find the resources that they are at risk of losing. When it comes to HOT OSM, it's mostly orchestrated by aid organizations. So the American Red Cross, British Red Cross, USAID, World Bank, all of these organizations use OpenStreetMap data that has been created through the HOT OSM system for coordinating OSM users. There's always tons of tasks available on the website. A lot of them are requesting right now support for COVID-19. A lot of places just don't have the resources to find out who is infected where. So COVID OSM mappers can come in and support these governments that are having trouble by creating detailed maps of where people may live that they can connect to their hospitals and create detailed infection maps and finding out who's spreading it where to help counteract the disease. There's also ones where places have been affected by landslides, places that are suffering from food insecurity. In these areas, we also map buildings to try and gauge population clusters so that the appropriate amount of aid can get out to those people. With the landslides, they're mapping roads to find out which ones have been damaged and how locals can get around the damaged roads to get to where they need to be. So the people who set up the HotOSM projects are called project managers. And what they do is they just define an area and then say what they need to be done in that region. So if they need buildings to be mapped or roads to be mapped, if they want lakes to be drawn up, if they need river boundaries to be changed, any of those they can be done through using the OSM tasking manager. Contributors come into these tasks and they select a square so that they don't overlap their work with other contributors. That helps limit the amount of work that the validators have to do when they're coming in to try and fix everyone's minor mistakes. The validators in this program are actually defined by the project managers. So that means that validation is set to the standard that the project managers define. So if a project manager wants only members of their own organization to validate the data, that assures a certain level of quality that you wouldn't get with, say, student validates. So that sums up HotOSM tasks and the OSM design. Does anyone have any questions? Excellent. So, was that a question?
With the mapping process, is it ever a case whereby youth mappers have to go to the country or the site that the data is needed for, or is it a case whereby they stay in their own country and do the mapping for the area that is needed?
The vast majority of it is done from, say, in your home. But there are situations where the Red Cross or other organizations will send out mappers to go and physically find out what buildings are located where. You can't figure out what buildings are from a satellite's point of view. So sometimes you just have to have people on the ground, and HotOSM and these organizations are willing to put people out there to find out what's going on.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any idea what's the total number of, or an estimated number of mappers globally, youth mappers?
Of youth mappers, I couldn't say, but for OSM, I know that there have been at least 200,000 mappers who have registered online and have made at least one contribution. So I'd say that's a pretty sizable and untapped resource of volunteer mappers who are willing to make a small contribution to their communities through geography.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, if not, I'd like to welcome our two guests, Ms. Simone Lloyd, GIS professional of a NERGIST coordinator for the National Emergency Response GIS team, and Mr. Alfred Kells, senior land officer at the Land Information Center of Belize. Ms. Simone, I'm going to take it to you.
So for this presentation, we're going to be looking at Jamaica's National Emergency Response GIS team and how it is that this team has been providing geospatial support for Jamaica in response to different disasters and emergencies, but also not just Jamaica, other countries in the Caribbean region, of which Jamaica is focal point for. So we're going to be looking at a quick background of what NERGIST is, its structure, what are our primary activities, also the organizations and the membership, how does one become a member, how it is that we facilitate training of our membership, and how it is and what type of disasters that we have responded to, we are currently responding to, past deployments, what those have been, in particular with respect to the present COVID-19 global pandemic and what's happening where that is concerned, what we've done where that is concerned, and future plans where that is concerned, in addition to the importance of NERGIS and how it is that NERGIS can form a template in terms of a similar approach being taken for other countries. So given the fact that we have persons joining from different countries, just to point out that Jamaica is located in the northwestern section of the Caribbean region. And in so, we are impacted by various disasters. We are considered to be in a highly vulnerable area. And the various disasters, well, the various hazards that we're exposed to vary from earthquakes, given our location on the Caribbean plate. So a lot of earthquakes occurring on an annual basis. Most times negligible, meaning we're not able to physically feel. But of course, in terms of instruments, the instruments, of course, would record that, yes, an earthquake has occurred. Now, apart from our location, the fact that we have a lot of faults also impacts us in terms of the occurrence of these seismic activities. Given our location also, we are impacted by various hurricanes. Hurricanes, tropical storms, depressions occur. And during this hurricane season in particular, we have been not directly impacted by any hurricane or any tropical storm, but in them passing, we tend to suffer the secondary effects of them. So we've been having a lot of rainfall occurring over the past few weeks. Every day, essentially, we have a lot of rain occurring. With that, of course, comes landslides occurring, flood events happening, sometimes more frequent than not, and the listing goes on. So based on that, also the fact that we have flood events occurring from rivers overflowing their banks, flash floods occurring, different from coastal relating flooding in relation to sea level rise, storm surge in relation to storms, and the listing goes on. So we are quite vulnerable, highly vulnerable. So there are three entities that it's important that we speak to in speaking about NERGIST. So firstly, there is the Land Information Council of Jamaica, and this is a combined body comprised of many entities of Jamaica, also a few private sector and tertiary institutions that actively use GIS or engage in geospatial activities to execute their mandate or different programs that are GIS or geospatial related. Now, the LICJ, that body, has as its mandate the council itself and the National Spatial Data Management Branch, which is the secretariat for that body, looks at how it is that at the end of the day, we want geospatial data, products and services for Jamaica that they are current, they're available, and they're accessible. And this is to all users with regards to facilitating planning, management, and the use of all resources as an island towards ensuring sustainable development and also economic growth. So that's our wide vision as a country, and it's spoken to in our Vision 2030 National Development Plan. Now, importantly, of course, you can appreciate that disasters and emergencies impact sustainable development, economic growth. The ODPEM, Jamaica's Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, is the national body with responsibility for disaster and emergency activities for the country. And so they coordinate the activities with respect to Jamaica's response to any major event. And that's the ODPEM. Now, why is it that NERGIS came into being is very important given the context of the LICJ and ODPEM and our vision as a country, or GI's vision. Now, back in 2004, Jamaica was significantly impacted by Hurricane Ivan. It was very devastating. And with the level of devastation that we experienced and how much it impacted our GDP, and the volume of work that it then required of ODPM to respond to what was the case scenario in terms of the impact of the hurricane. The then founder and chair of the Land Information Council of Jamaica, Mrs. Jacqueline Da Costa, thought it best to look at the fact that the LICJ has all of these GIS professionals, GIS personnel in different government organizations under the council. Why not provide support to Jamaica's Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management so that in the event of, well, then Ivan, the pooling of resources and skill sets and knowledge base could help ODPEM to really effectively respond to this event, which was Hurricane Ivan then. So that is how NERGIST came into being, through Hurricane Ivan and the need to provide geospatial support, and the fact that back then ODPEM had very limited number of persons, and it was only one person in ODPEM who was doing any form of GIS work. And so why not pool the resources across government to provide that national support? And so with that came NERGIST. So that is the context and background of NERGIST. So from 2004, NERGIST has been in existence and actively responding to Jamaica's national disaster and emergency effort. However, in 2010 was when NERGIST was officially launched. Well, officially via cabinet decision, officially established, although in existence from 2004. And then since then, a number of things put in place in terms of streamlining our activities and ensuring that the team is trained, and building out in terms of the number of personnel who provide the support. And over time, how it is that, of course, attrition occurs in terms of the loss of persons to other jobs or overseas, etc. How it is to actually keep that pool of persons, volunteer GIS persons from across government, the government of Jamaica, organized, and they're ready to provide support in the event of an event, right? So with that, we have NERGIST being born. So NERGIST was officially launched back in 2014. This was the first pool of persons who were officially NERGIST certified individuals. We've had 3 batches since then. So the structure is, there is a National Disaster Committee of which the Prime Minister is the head. Then there is ODPEM as the national body that coordinates disaster activities. Then comes the National Spatial Data Management Branch, which is a secretariat to the LICJ, which organizes the team and executes the work in terms of whatever is needed for the team to actually execute the work that is needed to do. And the team members are from across the government, and these are GIS personnel. So the team is wide in terms of the various persons who over the years have been involved in the team from 2004 to current, and it is quite wide. And so we continue to ensure that these persons are recruited, and that with that, we provide support in terms of them being able to respond whenever there is an event. Now, these persons are NERGIST certified professionals, and they become NERGIST certified professionals after we pursue a 3-module training with the personnel. So persons are trained in global navigation satellite system data collection. They're also trained in spatial analysis for disaster management, also initial damage assessment. Now, apart from this, there are other training programs that occur throughout the year that the NSDMB spearheads, and through those training programs, these personnel are also able to benefit from GIS training that further develops their capacity so that they can respond in terms of providing support in their organization, given their assigned tasks, different from using those knowledge and skills to then enable them to be able to also apply that in disaster and emergency response activities. So once they're trained in these 3 core areas, we then award them 2 certifications. So spoke about GNSS data collection, spoke about spatial analysis, but there's also the area of initial damage assessment. Now, the USAID has an initial damage assessment program, well, course, and with that course, it trains persons in how to go into an area after a disaster, look at what is happening in terms of the infrastructure, also the buildings that are there in the area, and the level of damage that the area has experienced by ranking the buildings. And the ranking of the buildings, I think, my memory serves me right, goes up to, I think, level 5, where is it a case whereby there is no damage, or is the building totally demolished, or whether it is just so damaged that it's beyond repair. So we have to rank the buildings within 48 hours of a major event. We have to go into an area. Once the ODPM determines that these are the areas that are primary focus, they request that the NSDMB activates NERGIST. The team, we then communicate with the organizations. The organizations determine which personnel from the member organizations who are available to be deployed. And then these persons are organized, they're briefed at ODPM, and then they're dispatched to the various areas to provide whichever support is needed. And we'll go through in terms of what the support is. So within 48 hours of an event, NERGIST is required to respond if there is a major event. All right, and that is stated in the cabinet decision that was approved. So persons are trained in the 3 core areas, they are certified, and then they are, apart from that, we also ensure that we keep track of other trainings, NASA trainings, NOAA trainings that look at different events, different hazards, and we look at that and how it is that they can be trained in these particular areas. So there are particular courses that come up that can be beneficial to the team. They are also encouraged to participate in those trainings to then improve their knowledge base and their skills and their capacity. Radio training has been one of the trainings that we have recently pursued up to last year to ensure that the team, whenever they go out in the field, if there's a need to use radio, that is fine. So there's usually at intervals training happening in collaboration with the ODPM. So spoke about 1 batch, these are the 2 other batches. So we're presently looking at training a 4th batch of personnel as NERGIST professionals. So these are 2 snippets of the team, well, batches of the team, sections of the team going out for different deployments. There was a major flood event back in 2017 in Montego Bay, major flooding of the city, which required a team to be deployed. Then we had a series of bushfires occurring in the upper hilly regions of St. Andrew, which also required the deployment of team. And so with that, the team is equipped with whatever gear in terms of uniform and supplies that are needed to then be deployed to the various areas. So usually we do pre-deployment in terms of sensitization, what is happening in the area, given calls that would be received by ODPM from the community. Given those calls, ODPM would also dialogue with whoever is a parish disaster coordinator to ensure that they are fully aware of what the situation is on the ground. Based on that would be the call for us to activate the team. Based on that would also be the need to determine how many members are needed to be deployed. And with that then comes organizing the team and the dispatching of personnel to the various areas to provide whatever support is needed in terms of mapping. So deployments have been held before in response to bushfires. So mapping of areas that have been impacted by bushfires, also mapping of areas that have been impacted by tropical storms in the past. If it's not in direct response to going in the field, sometimes we do remote mapping using online platforms that has also been facilitated over time. So these are the various events that we have responded to. So there are hydrometeorological events, hurricanes, tropical storms, depressions, floods, landslides, droughts, bushfires, but also disease-related outbreaks. So chikungunya back in 2014, I think it was, 2014-15, different from responding to COVID-19 this year. So our usually responses with regards to natural, this year is the first time this is the second time we're responding to a disease of some form. So there have been past deployments, or past deployments are both locally in Jamaica, but also we've had team members being dispatched overseas to other Caribbean countries, of which Jamaica is focal point for. So here's just a snapshot of different hurricanes over time, different fires, different floods, different storms that we have provided a response to locally and also overseas. So this is sort of bushfires in 2015, storm in 2010 locally in West Milan, and the listing goes on in terms of what we've responded to. Droughts also, in terms of mapping for droughts. Flash floods. In particular, given that ODPEM is responsible for the sub-regional northwestern section of the Caribbean, we have repeatedly responded to the Bahamas, also to the Turks and Caicos Islands, when they have been impacted by various hurricanes. And this is where the whole use of volunteered geographic information comes into play. Of course, locally, because we are mapping on site in the various areas, we capture that data of our own in the field, usually primarily using GPS units or GNSS equipment, or we may use mobile phones and then collect the data using apps, ArcGIS apps installed on the phones. Outside of that, at times, so that is locally, when we, however, have to respond in terms of going overseas, it is usually important to ascertain data for the country that we're going into, fundamental data sets. And so with that, the use of volunteer geographic information comes important. So over time, we have used different online sources, OpenStreetMaps being prime, also using VGIS, and there are other sites that we've used to download existing data that is on those sites, freely available data that we can use of roads, roads, the drain, and other important info that we need going in to the area. Different from what we need to do in terms of mapping on site in terms of the level of impact in terms of disaster. So just some snapshots of response for different hurricanes in the Bahamas, different from Turks and Caicos Islands. So these snapshots are taken while in those countries by different NERGIST personnel. So it just speaks to use of volunteer geographic info from different online sites that we at times use given the need to respond to other countries. All right. And as was stated before, what is important usually after a major event is responding within 48 hours if it's locally. If it is overseas in a neighboring Caribbean country that falls within the northwestern section of the Caribbean, of which where Jamaica is also responsible for, then comes responding within 72 hours, usually. Of course, given the situation at times, it may be difficult to respond within 72 hours, given all that is needed to then deal with teams being deployed and all of that. But usually it's 72 hours for overseas deployment, 48 hours for local. So support is provided to CDEMA, the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, different from support provided to Jamaica's ODPEM, Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management. So COVID-19. Now, back in March of this year, on the 13th, Jamaica was declared a national disaster area, given the fact that we had 8 confirmed cases of COVID-19 back then. And so the Prime Minister declared Jamaica a national disaster area, which then triggered the whole Disaster Risk Management Act being enforced. With that then triggered ODPEM requesting that NERGIST be activated to provide support to Jamaica to the National Emergency Operations Center, which is based at ODPEM. So when there is a major event, ODPEM activates its NEOC, which then deals with the whole coordination of the activities for the country, for the entire island, in terms of what is going to happen in terms of the security forces, in terms of health, in terms of the provision of social services, and whatever else needs to happen in terms of coordinating and dealing with whoever is coming into the country in terms of entering by a sea or by air, etc., versus who is leaving. Well, more so who is coming in is what is important. So all of that is coordinated from the National Emergency Operations Center at ODPEM. So the request was for NERGIST to be activated to then provide support at ODPEM from March for an extended period of time in response to COVID. So with that, the team was activated. It was actually our longest deployment ever, which was a significant team effort, and it really exemplifies the power of teams. So we had persons from multiple government entities, Agricultural and Management Division, Natural Housing Trust, National Water Commission, National Works Agency, Water Resources Authority, so to the Mines and Geology Division, and the National Spatial Management Branch, who provided support over time. Right. So with that, different products were produced. So on a daily basis at ODPEM, we had to be generating static maps to look at the status of the COVID-19 cases, different to look at areas that were quarantined based on the COVID-19 confirmed cases. We also had to be dealing with, mapping of specific personnel and their contacts for various areas was done. And on a daily basis, keeping track of how many confirmed positive cases, confirmed recovered, and number of deaths per parish. We had to keep track of that in terms of providing that update in terms of different maps, speaking to that. Of course, we had to be working a lot with the Ministry of Health and Wellness for Jamaica. So the data, of course, so this particular case would be different from the other events of which we have responded to, because the other events would have required us to be doing the primary data collection. In this case, however, we had to be relying on the data, of course, which would be coming in from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And based on that data, we would then be mapping accordingly and providing this in the form of various products to the National Emergency Operations Center. Apart from the mapping of static maps, the development of static maps, different surveys, ArcGIS, Esri's ArcGIS has survey 1, 2, 3 forms, and these forms were used to generate different tools that would aid the Ministry of Health and Wellness to deal with different things. So the mapping in terms of calls that were coming in to the BPO, in terms of where COVID-19 information was concerned and the confirmed cases, different from monitoring of travel patterns of the health workers and their status, the monitoring of the cases in terms of whether they're confirmed or suspected, well, confirmed, recovered, or death, monitoring of households that were under quarantine, and also the isolation facilities, in addition to bed capacity, because keeping track of hospitals and the number of beds that are available, different from how many are assigned to be COVID beds, different from how many are occupied versus how many are not, was always key to be keeping track of. And so we're now in a different phase in terms of working with the Ministry of Health and Wellness in terms of expanding on these tools and fine-tuning some of them and expanding some to then include additional things that are needed. So different forms developed. So there was use of paper forms for some things, which was then translated into survey 1, 2, 3 forms, different from we've been having different meetings with the Ministry of Health and Wellness over the past few weeks in how to streamline a number of the different forms that they have. Forms that will be from the data entry side, from persons walking into different health centers or hospitals, different from the whole lab work and what comes in terms of filling out forms there and all the various processes, how to streamline all of that into one form that will be filled out by the requisite persons at different stages, but that this will be digital and not paper format. And from this, being able to easily map in terms of what is happening, different from visualizing what is happening easily than to be working with paper. Yeah, and all that comes with paper and the whole errors that come with paper, different from other challenges. Apart from that, different dashboards were created, mobile and also desktop dashboards that looked at the cases of, these are not up to date in terms of the current cases that are currently in existence in terms of the number of confirmed cases in Jamaica, but it just gives a snapshot of what some of the dashboards look like that were created, that have been created. And we're in a different phase now in terms of updating these dashboards, revamping them, and accounting for what the current figures are in terms of the cases. So NERGIST has done significant work since 2004 to current, COVID-19 being our current response effort. So we are no longer deployed to the NEOC at ODPEM, but we are working a lot with the Ministry of Health and Wellness in understanding their processes at different stages where COVID-19 is concerned, plus in general, so that we can help them to streamline their activities. We've been working with them in terms of upgrading their GIS infrastructure, which has been overhauled based on all that has happened over the past few weeks. And now we're executing in terms of how to streamline certain things in terms of use of one form and development of particular tools that can better support their needs in terms of moving forward. So given all of that, you can appreciate the benefit that NERGIST has facilitated in terms of the ODPEM in general, government on a wide scale, and also nationally in terms of response efforts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simone. Does anyone have any questions? We have one from the comments. Since this is being recorded, will it be uploaded to YouTube? Jean?
It could be if Mason and Dan and Sawyer can help me. I'm not so experienced in doing that. So, but
I
very
think
good.
I can get in touch with YouthMappers and see if they can post it to their channel.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you,
Yeah.
Dan. And so we have everyone's contact information, and so we can send it to you where the link will be. So appreciate that. Thank you, Simone, for a very, very comprehensive presentation. Thank you.
Welcome, Jean.
Our next guest speaker is Mr. Alfred Kell. He's a senior land officer at the Land Information Center of Belize. Go ahead.
Hey. All right, good evening. I'll just share my screen. All right, good evening again. Good evening to all Belizeans as well who are tuning in to this virtual conference. My name is Alfred Kal. I'm a senior land information officer, as well as a GIS analyst and a project manager for the various projects that we have at the Land Information Center, Department of Land and Surveys, and the Ministry of Natural Resources. So my presentation will focus mainly on the Land Information Center and what we do and the services that we provide here. I know not all of us are from the same country, that's why I will provide a background of Belize and before I continue into my presentation. So this is an overview of my presentation, and I will first look at the geographical background of Belize. And of course, the main focus of presentation, I will talk about the Land Information Center, how we use GIS in land management at the center, the Belize National Spatial Data Infrastructure, which is an ongoing project. A big project, an ongoing project that encompasses a lot of organization that is currently in progress. And then I will speak a bit on the potential use for crowdsourced data in Belize. And then I will wrap it up with a conclusion. So let's continue and let's look at the geographical background of Belize. Belize is a country located in Central America. It is previously known as British Honduras, mainly because we were formerly a British colony. We gained independence in 1981. And one of the largest or main source of currency or foreign currency in Belize is tourism. As you can see on the images here on my presentation, you can see some of our tourist attractions. For example, the archaeological sites, our caves, of course, our famous blue hole and our barrier reef system, and our sandy beaches. So, but also we export other products such as bananas, citrus, sugar, and a bit of petroleum. Belize is a small country that is located just south of Mexico, east of Guatemala and north of Honduras. The capital is Belmopan, and we have a small area of 8,867 square miles, and also a small population of 331,900. This is based on the 2010 census. And of course, they will soon release the numbers for the 2020 census, which should put us around, I think, around 400,000 population for Belize. The country, it's a diverse country with different ethnicities and cultures. We have the Creoles, the Mestizo, Mayas, the Garifuna, Indians, Chinese, Taiwanese, and also the Mennonites. So that gives us a background of Belize and what it is, where it is located. Now, we will look at what Land Information Center is all about. So LIC is a section. It's one of the sections of the Department of Land and Surveys. And the Department of Land and Surveys has 7 sections. We have the Land Registry, National Estate section, the Evaluation section, physical planning, mapping, and also the Land Titles unit. But the Land Information Center was created to support all of these. That was the initial idea of creating the center, which is to provide geospatial support to the other section of the Department of Land and Surveys. And of course, the Department of Land and Surveys have a central office, which is in Belmopan. That's where I work. And then we branch out into all the districts in Belize. So we have offices in every district in Belize. So LIC was established in 1992 with an overall vision to improve integrated resource management in Belize by providing an organized and reliable geospatial information services and a regulating access framework for policy and decision making. Our main objective is to use our data resources for the improvement of all aspects of land management, example, land distribution, and also land allocation in the country. Mainly what this means is that we are created to provide support to the government of Belize in the better distribution of these resources such as land. Now we'll look at the services that we provide at the center. One of the main services is our main component of LIC is the Geographic Information System component. What we do is we use GIS to generate resource maps, statistics, and do analysis to support activities such as land management, which is our main focus or our main activity or our daily task at the center. But of course, we do other analysis such as land use planning, protected areas management, support to national security forces, our soldiers, and also our police, Coast Guard, and also disaster damage assessment, and also for agricultural suitability mapping, just to name a few. So there are so many services that we provide to different organizations. And that leads me to our partners. We have several partners, both national, regional, and international. Locally, this include academia, such as University of Belize, Yale University, other ministry organizations such as the Ministry of Work, NEMO, National Emergency Management Organization, Forest Department, all the town and city municipalities in the country, and many, many more partners. What you're seeing here on the screen are some of the products that we produce here at the center. We do cadastral mapping, we do land cover mapping, watershed mapping, suitability mapping, particular areas mapping, and the list goes on. And we also have a section of remote sensing as well. Another interesting thing about LIC, I would say, is that we are open to interns. We host interns. We have been hosting interns for quite some time now. We host interns both locally, internationally. Our main and active partner in this is the University of Belize. Over the years, there are many interns that have come to the center and work on several projects. And eventually, these interns or students actually, are working now in the GIS field in the country of Belize. And of course, we have interns from Yale University as well, and other universities internationally from US and Canada. There are several that we work on. We have some ongoing projects at this moment. I will just go quickly on some of these projects. We have the trade license reform zoning project. What this basically does is we are assisting all the municipalities, the town councils in doing zonation and categorization of the different economic activities that are happening within their towns and cities. And this is mainly going to be used for a better way of collecting revenue. We have the Ministry of Housing Building Sector Reform Project. This is similar to the Trade License Reform Project, but this is mainly for the rural areas of Belize. We have a Building Footprints Project. This is an ongoing project, and I want to make mention of this Building Footprints Project because this is the project that many of our interns work on. And the reason is we are trying to collect information from every structure, from every building that exists in Belize. And again, this is important for disaster management. As it is right now, there are areas in Belize that we don't have any historical information on buildings or what type of building exists there. So this is a data set that is continuously being built, and it's mostly interns that work on it. We target mostly the towns and cities at this time, and eventually we'll move on to the rural areas of Belize. And then we have the bigger project, which is the Belize National Spatial Data Infrastructure, which I will talk about it in a few. Our next project, interesting project as well, that come on stream this year is the RED Plus project. This is looking at the reducing emission for deforestation and land degradation in developing countries. So we provide support to provide land tenure information also and land use analysis for this project. Now let's look at the main services that we provide at the center, which is, again, as I mentioned, we use GIS for land management. So again, Belize is a developing country, and over the years, we have been working diligently to digitalize all of our paper maps into a spatial form. As you can see here, this is a snippet of our land cadastral map. And this is one of the most updated database that we have at the center. And this is the database that most of our partners that have access to and they have need for. For example, the utilities companies will have to come to us to get this information. If you want to build a home, you will need this information. If the electricity company wants to run electricity poles or water pipes, you will need this kind of information. And at this moment, the Land Information Center is the only section that has this type of information. It is the official source for land cadastre information. And with this information, of course, we provide support to different organizations, like I mentioned, Department of Environment, for their different reports, to the Forest Department for the different annual reports. For example, this image here is showing the distribution of land in Belize, and this is done. This has been done annually. So organizations use this to do their annual reports. As you can see here, as there is still 33% of Belize that is in protected areas. So this is type of services that provide to not only to our Ministry of Natural Resources, but also to other organizations in Belize and also NGOs as well. Now, I want to talk about the Belize National Spatial Data Infrastructure. This is an initiative that is again started by LIC in 2008. And the reason for it is because we have realized that over the years, there are many other organizations like LIC that are producing spatial data, collecting spatial data. So there might be organizations that are collecting the same type of information. For example, if we are doing a road networks for Belize, the Land Information Center might be collecting that information. NEMO might be collecting the same information. So there is a lot of duplication going on. So what we decided is that as a ministry, as a unit, is that we should find a way to standardize these spatial information. So the NSDI is an umbrella of policies, procedures, standards, technologies for efficient use, management, and the production of spatial data. And the overall goal or objective is for data sharing. And since 2008, it has been a slow process, slow progress, but in 2012, Cabinet approved the policy paper for us to actually develop a fully functional NSDI in Belize. And this gives us more other structures in place to start to share data with our partners. Throughout this number of years, it's a work in progress. We have also developed what we call the BNSDI GeoPortal, which I will show you now. This is our link here. If you can see it here, you are free to click on it, but it's not open to everyone. You will need to have a username and password. So I have it open already. So I will just go to show you the GeoPortal. If you can see it here, this is our GeoPortal then for the BNSDI. And let me see if I can just adjust my screen here. We can change this to yeah, so this is our GeoPortal, and again, this has been built over the years by our different stakeholders, different partners, academias, NGOs. We have loaded several data sets to this portal, again, from the different organizations. We have developed standards, we have developed sharing agreements as to how these data set will work. And what I want to show you is we have some of these data, again, about Belize on different teams. We have the hurricane planning, so this would have information, for example, hurricane shelters and those stuff. Infrastructure, transportation will be including data on roads. Hydrography will have water bodies, rivers, and so on. So there are different thematics in this loaded in this GeoPortal. We look at elevation.
Alfred, I don't
Yes.
think we're seeing your link to the portal. I think we're just seeing your slideshow. Are you trying to show
Okay.
the web page? We do have the link, so we could all go on it, but I think you.
Yes, but yes, we can. The link will require that you have a username and password.
Okay,
So Yeah, so you won't be able to access it at this moment.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is just some of the data sets that we have on the Geo portal. And this portal actually have some basic analysis that you can do right on the portal itself without actually having to use ArcGIS or any GIS software. You can do some of the basic analysis on this portal. Again, so we look at some of the data here, for example, elevation data for Belize. We can look at the elevation data, for example. You can see there. And just looking at it, you will see that the highest area or in Belize is more located in central, and this area here along the coast are mostly low areas, lowlands. So this just gives us, I just want to show you guys the different data set that we have here, the analysis, we have analysis tools built in, some basic analysis tool like, you know, to do choosing best route or best facilities, create buffers, drive time areas, and those stuff like that. And so there are some tools that are already built in that you can actually run or use these same data that you already have on the portal that you can run these analysis for whatever scenario that you may have. Okay, so let's get back to the presentation. So next up is share this again. Okay, so the next topic I want to talk about is the potential for crowdsourced data in Belize. As it is, there is very limited crowdsourced data in Belize, and especially in the government sector, there is non-existent. So the government of Belize are not using the crowdsourced data. So it's a new thing in Belize, and of course we see the need for it. And so what we discuss among my peers and at the center, and we see that there is potential for crowdsourced data in Belize, especially for disaster management. Why? Because Belize, again, is affected by natural disaster. These include floods, hurricanes, storm surges. As you have, I just shown you the elevation for Belize. There's the low-lying areas, and approximately 40% of our population live in this area. So this makes us very vulnerable to these natural disasters. So this is where I think crowdsourcing data can be useful. For example, if you look at these images that I have here, these are some of the flood events that happened in our country. But there are limited, very limited information that are collected. So there isn't historical records or archives of information for the cause of flood, the extent of flooding, the areas that are affected. So those data are very limited at this time. So I think this is where we can use crowdsourced data to collect some of this information. And according to World Bank in 2010, Hurricane T and Iris in 2001 respectively, some of the worst damages in Belize with 280 million US dollars. So this just shows us the need that we can see the potential for crowdsourced data in Belize in disaster management. So how this can be done, I think using, again, social media like Facebook, and which is very common in Belize. We can collect information on location of flooded areas. For example, if you look at this picture here, this is a picture that's taken by someone in 2009, I think, of a huge flooding area, event in Ladyville area. And this gives us a very good validation for flood models. For example, as I mentioned before, there's very limited information here. So there is not satellite images that we can see, okay, these are the extent of past floods. So these are some type of information that we can gather from crowdsource to help us validate some of these flood flood areas or flood-prone areas. So this could be in the form of photos and also videos as well. So this can be used as validation process and gradually builds understanding of the damaging an area and help us to see the areas that are most affected and respond to those areas that are mostly in urgent need. And of course, based on the several works that we've done in Belize with regards to flooding, we see that community information as well is very important and it's mostly accurate most of the time. The reason is in flood areas, these residents that live in there, they experience this flood on an annual basis or on several occasions over the years in their lives. So they will know the extent of floods. They will know how high the water will rise. They even have in areas that that they keep track of the watermarks. They make some kind of um, marks on the walls or on the buildings or on some structure that you can actually still see the extent of the flood. So community source intelligence is generally considered to be accurate in terms of disaster, specifically for flooding. And with that, I want to conclude. I see the importance of crowdsourced data again in disaster management, but not only in that, but we have other areas that we can use crowdsourced data. So although there is limited application of crowdsourced data in Belize, there's a huge potential for it in disaster management and also in other scenarios. We see that LIC is a geospatial hub for Belize. We are the leader in geospatial information for the country, for the government, but also for the country of Belize. And so most of the projects, geospatial projects, are housed at the Land Information Center. And we can see that this can provide infrastructures because we have, through the BNSDI, we have structures in place, we have been developing standards and the different sharing protocols. And I think that we can then assist by providing these standards to the crowdsourced data, and then eventually these data can be used by the government for decision making. And of course, as you've seen, we have the GeoPortal that is an ongoing project, an ongoing platform that we are building. And these information or crowdsourced information could be also be hosted to this GeoPortal. And again, crowdsourced data is a new thing in Belize, but we can see that we can, if we engage university students or interns and also our local communities, then we can fully have a fully functional crowdsourced data in Belize. Now with that, I conclude, and if you guys have any questions, just feel free to ask. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alfred Cal. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Cal? One says, Mr. Cal, requirements to join as an intern on the Building Footprint project. What are the requirements?
There is no requirements. You just come to us and you want to join the project, or you just want to come in and assist. Then there's no requirement. Just come in. It's open. So we have office space. So in the type of work we do is it involves both office and field work. So there's no requirement. If you want to volunteer to do the field employment, they're open to anyone. And the more interest you have, the much more information you can provide.
Any other questions?
I just want to say thank you very much, Alfred. Very good presentation. And I want to remind myself included, but Mason, Sawyer, Dan, Simone, and Alfred, that we should all add our contact information into the chat also. I have not done it, so I'm as guilty as all of us, but I just wanted to remind that. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Alfred, where would students interested in the internship go to find out more about it?
Yeah, well, right now, we have an email. We can share the email again, I think, in the chat. I will share it in a few. So we can do by emails, or you can also visit us at the in Belmopan at the Queen Elizabeth II Boulevard in Belmopan. But if that is if you are around Belmopan or around San Ignacio, which is just a few minutes to to the location. But you can send your emails to me, lic.akal@naturalresources.gov.bz, and we can hook you up. I think I will just put that in the chat. Let me just put that one time. So that is where you can, you can contact me, and we can also assign username and password for you to be able to explore some of the data set that we have on the geoportal.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cal and Simone, for both of your lectures. They're both very informative. Emma Simonis is your hand is raised. I don't know if you have a question.
Sorry, that's like, I thought it was clapping. Isn't it clapping? Is that hand raised or clapping?
I couldn't tell the difference.
I thought it was clapping.
It's clapping.
Yay. No questions.
Okay. Well, then that concludes the guest lectures portion of our presentation. So as we mentioned before, OpenStreetMap is just an online program for individuals to make contributions to a global and ever-building map. So how we're going to start with this is that for those of you who have already created an OpenStreetMap account and are already familiar with the HotOSM system, I've gone ahead and given this optional task for you to do while we train the others and get them all prepared. So if you want to begin on a task immediately, you can work on task number 9528. For the rest of you attending, the first step to create an OSM account to get mapping is by going to the web address at www.openstreetmap.org. So the first thing you're going to want to do is go to that website.
Mason, can you send a link to the task in the group chat?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
I just put one before you message.
Thank you.
We could also use a link to the openstreetmap.org in the chat as well, just to facilitate people getting in. As soon as you reach that website, you're going to want to click the sign up button in the top right of the web screen.
Mason, I have a question. So does everybody have access to, do you have to have access to anything special on your computer for this?
No, it should run on any browser. I think, I know for sure it runs on Google Chrome and Edge.
Okay.
I believe Firefox as well. So as long as you're running on one of those three web browsers, OpenStreetMap should work just fine. You don't need any other additional materials.
Do you need a mouse or a digitizer?
A mouse really helps speed things along, but you can actually work with it on your touchpad or whatever device you're using.
Okay.
So once you've clicked the sign up button on openstreetmap.org, you're going to enter your email address, your username, and create a password for yourself, and then hit sign up. So your email, I just typically use my school address, but you can also use your personal email if you wish. You'll need to confirm that just to make sure you're not misspelling it in any way. And then you can choose a display name for yourself. It can be just your name if you wish. It can be a pseudonym, whatever name you want to be read as on the OpenStreetMap webpage. So yeah, to sign up, go ahead and just enter your email address, your display name, and your password. After that, you can click sign up. Once you do that, it's going to ask for you to agree to their terms and conditions. There's not really a whole lot in there. It's mostly just ways for the company to protect themselves. But it guarantees that your work won't be misused. So after you've done that, you select your country of residence for almost everyone, the rest of the world. You agree to the terms and conditions and you hit continue. Then you're going to want to go to that email that you registered with them and check for a confirmation email. That confirmation email is just going to direct you back to the OpenStreetMap website and sign you in immediately. After you've clicked the email and the provided link, it'll take you right to the website, and then it's just a couple more clicks for you to start the tutorial. Click Edit in the top left of the screen next to the OpenStreetMap symbol, and it'll take you to the actual map itself. After doing so, you can either zoom in and click Edit again, or you can just click the Zoom in to Edit button that's usually displayed in the center of the screen. And from there, you should actually be able to edit the map. But if you're not familiar with the tools or have never worked with, say, ArcMap or OSM before, the smart thing to do would be to do the tutorial first. So we're going to go through together the walkthrough. The OSM actually has a tutorial like ingrained within their system to help facilitate new users just to become familiar with the system. So if you want to do the walkthrough, which I strongly recommend, then what you're going to want to do is after you've started editing, you'll click H, or you'll select this little question mark book on the left or the right panel on the right side of your screen. And from there, you'll click Start the Walkthrough. And that'll begin your tutorial. So to get to the tutorial, after you've clicked Edit on the map, you should be able to see on the right side a panel. There's a book on it with the question
Mason,
mark.
could you repeat how to get to the tutorial again?
That's what I'm doing. So
Okay.
on the right side of the screen, once you've opened the edit, then you'll press the H key or click this button that looks like a book on the right side of this panel. It looks like a book with a little question mark, and it'll pop open this help screen that will allow you to start the walkthrough. For those of you that have already opened up the walkthrough, you can go ahead and start just by following the instructions that appear on screen. It's going to teach you how to move around the map, how to utilize it, how to create lines, circles, and boxes, how to make the angles have sharp edges. So you can do that independently. I would do that. And then I'm also going to go through it with y'all as soon as we catch everybody up. So feel free to go ahead. For those of you that are familiar with, any sort of mapping device, a lot of the controls are very intuitive. So scroll to zoom in, zoom out, lines, you're just dropping points. If anyone's running into any issues, please feel free to post in chat or speak out loud.
Yeah, I'm having some issues. I'm at the points step, and it keeps on, when I click to highlight the point, it just gives me a gray screen. That's it. It doesn't highlight anything else. It doesn't tell me any other instruction.
What does the instruction say?
It's not saying anything. The instructions just came up because it just said to click the point, and that's it. I didn't see anything else.
So I'm at the point section right now. How about you look at my screen and then you tell me at what point you're at?
Okay.
So at the start of the points, it asks me to click the point button.
Right.
And it just wants me to click anywhere in that square.
Oh. Okay.
Points are how we will label buildings. So if you want to find a coffee shop, and you go to Google Maps or whatever, chances are they're pulling data from here from locals who know where the best restaurants and shops are. Brandon, yes, you can do that. You can update maps of, say, your hometown just to add businesses if they're not already there. And then after been validated by another user, they are going to be put officially on the OpenStreetMap map. And then companies from there will just take that data and run with it. So if you want more people to know about Jerry's coffee down the street, then this is one way to put him on the map, literally.
It's really cool, and like it's neat that it's available to everybody.
Joel, Google Maps uses their own system of validators to make sure that a lot of the information is correct. OpenStreetMap is sort of a rough map that that Google will use to start with before they really have information on an area. So they will particularly use buildings and roads, and they're kind of hesitant to include location names on their maps, unless it's like a popular business or it's been confirmed by several different validators. And then once a place has been confirmed for long enough, then it sort of locks in the map so others can't change it.
Nathan, question.
Yes?
What if the case whereby a location changes though, and there's a need to edit it after it's locked in?
Say that again, the last part.
So you just spoke about the whatever data is whatever it digitized, you lock in after verification occurs. What if over time there is a change in a particular feature and an update is needed? What's the procedure for that?
Well, Google follows their own validation methods, but what OpenStreetMap does is it will allow users to suggest an edit, and then after that suggestion has been validated by others, then the official map will change to reflect that. So it'll keep the old title until at least one validator has approved the new map. In terms of established communities, that might have higher levels of requirements for how many validators. I'm sure Dan could put some input in here as well.
In regards to validation, yeah, it's different with OpenStreetMap. I know they have a lot of paid validators. I don't know if you already mentioned that, but I mean, but you also can be a volunteer. Anyone can do it. They might require you to be like a bit more of an advanced mapper, but I'm not entirely sure.
They'll restrict some areas as to who can validate in those areas. So that's another way of monitoring people's edits.
How do I get back to the tutorial? I accidentally pressed something and I'm now on editing, but I want to view the tutorial. How do I get back to that?
So when you're back in the edit screen, one way to get back to the tutorial is by clicking the edit button in the top left. And then the same way you did it the first time, you're going to open the help shortcut and get back to the walkthrough. You won't have to redo it. So when you're back in the walkthrough, you can just, click on whatever step you were in. Say you're on areas, you can just click that in the bottom and it'll skip all the stuff you've already done.
Okay, thank you.
Mason.
Yes.
After they finish the tutorial, how do they get straight to the map that you created, or the map that we're doing today?
Let me show you. So after you've completed the tutorial, I'll say this again later for those of you who are still working on it. You're going to want to go to a website called hotosm.org. You can just Google hotosm and it should be the first link. HotOSM, as mentioned before, is a website used by humanitarian organizations to coordinate crowdsourced mappers into creating detailed maps for whatever relief efforts they're working on. It ensures that multiple people aren't working on the same buildings at the same time, producing maps with 2 buildings stacked on top of each other. So it's a good way for coordinating big efforts, especially for groups like YouthMappers who want to plan big projects all at once in a small area. So once you go to that website, you're going to type in the search box the number code for the task that we're working on. I had a couple ideas, although I have William here working on a task already. I thought it might be fun to put what task we work on to a vote, make it a little interactive. So I chose 2 of the tasks that I thought were large enough to accommodate us, not very complete, and pretty topical. We have a COVID-19 crisis in Belize, where they're asking people to map roads and buildings in order to keep track of where everyone is in case someone gets sick. They can pin them down to this building located on the OSM map. Then we have another map request coming from Gambia, one of their cities along the coast. They haven't stated any crisis there, but they're mentioning that they want buildings and roads, 2 maps that we could potentially work on, 1 in Belize and 1 in Gambia, North Africa. And if anyone would like to put their vote onto which project we work on, just post it in chat and we'll figure out which one to work with. To get to the HotOSM Task Manager page, you're going to start by going to the website and then clicking Start Mapping. It should be on the home screen. I can actually link, since it seems like it's unanimously Belize, I can provide the link directly to the COVID-19 issue going on there. So the code for that one is 9576 if you don't want to use the direct link.
You send that to me.
So if you're on the tasking manager page and you're looking for the Belize one, you can either click the link in chat or you can type in the numbers 9576 in the search projects button. From there, it'll bring you to the map where the project is being done. If you click contribute on the bottom right, it'll take you directly to the map if you've already signed up, or it'll ask you to sign up. All you have to do is give them the same email that you did for your OSM account, and it should connect you directly into it. It'll even come up with the OpenStreetMap prompt that allows you to grant access directly, so you don't have to sign into the account all over again. Once you do that, all you have to do is select Map a Task, and it should take you directly to a spot where you'll start mapping whatever the description sets. It wants you to map buildings and roads. If you map a building, it wants you to label them all as building, and it wants you to square the edges, which if you're online, you can just use the Q key to square buildings instantaneously. So just mark off all buildings as building unless you know what it is.
Sorry, Mason, I think you might need to demonstrate that last point.
Sure. So I'm going to actually go to the task managing website. I'll even log out to make a good example. So here on the task managing website, you can click Start Mapping to search for projects. The code we're using is, what was it, 9576?
Yeah, that's the right one.
Okay, so you put that in the search projects and it should come up immediately. Once there, it'll take you to the map and you click contribute to start making a contribution. It'll ask you to register and you just sign up using the same one that you had before. Apparently that's not it. And it'll prompt you to create an OpenStreetMap account. But you've already done that. So when it does this, just click I already have an OpenStreetMap account. And then it'll ask you to authorize OpenStreetMap to connect the two websites together. And that'll take you right to the page. Before you actually start mapping, it is really wise to actually look at the instructions. You want to know what imagery to use. Instead of just using Bing imagery, they want you to use this Maxar premium imagery. For buildings, it just wants you to call all buildings buildings, unless you really know the label of it. It wants you to square all of them. And for roads, it just wants you to label them as roads. Now, a lot of people don't know how to change the imagery. So the easiest way to do that is when you're actually in OpenStreetMap, there's this button on that right panel. It says background settings. It looks like the normal layering tool that you might see in Esri. If you click that, it'll take you right to all of the different satellite imageries. They're wanting us to use Maxar, what was it? Premium or standard? They're wanting us to try their Maxar premium imagery. And we're going to use this base map to draw our buildings. Sure thing. The steps to get to the imagery are, once you're actually in the map, what you're going to do is you're going to click this button on the side panel on the right side that says background settings. It looks like the ArcMap layers button. So if you click that, it'll take you to a list of imagery. The instructions tell us that we want to use this Maxar premium imagery. I'm going to come back to the tutorial to try and guide people through that. It seems like a few of us are getting a little stuck on buildings. So it's already taught you how to draw an area, right? You just click points and follow the edges of a building, like so. And then to finish a shape, you just double click that last point. Peter, if you're at a site and you don't see any buildings or any roads, then what you do is on the side here, you click, or it asks, is this task completely mapped? And you just click yes. It's just blank forestry. So it needs no further work on it. Back to the buildings. It's asking us to label the building as a house. And you can right click it to select it. From here, it's wanting us to square the edges of the buildings. I think Dan has already mentioned it, but validators end up having to spend a lot of their time having to square buildings that other contributors either forgot to do or neglected to do. So it's just a real easy step. When you highlight a building like this, you can just hit Q and it automatically squares the building. Saves you a bit of time. Or you could left click it and use their square tool. Circles are kind of the same. You just follow along the edges of the building until you feel like you got enough points. Double click that last one to finish the shape. And then it's going to want you to round out those edges. There you go, perfect circle building.
You said Maxar Premium, right?
Maxar Premium, yes.
Okay, just checking, sorry.
So if you end up getting a square that has no buildings, like say this patch of forestry, then you can just mark the task as complete. There are no buildings or roads to map there, so nothing left to do there. There aren't a whole lot of spots with cloud cover, but if you do come across a space that's covered by clouds and you can't see the buildings underneath, it's okay to switch the imagery to, like, say Bing, because the differences are pretty minor, but try to stick to the Maxar Premium imagery just to comply with the creators of that task. Yeah, Peter, if yours has nothing but greenery and all the buildings and roads are mapped, then you can just mark the task completely mapped and submit it.
Even if there aren't any buildings, it's still like an important thing to know for the project manager, because then they're aware that there just aren't any buildings out there. They don't have to worry about it.
And the task instructions don't say anything about labeling forest, so I think all we're doing is buildings and roads.
Mason, can you briefly show how to get to the tutorial again?
Sure.
In OSM?
So let's start at the big map again, like we had the first time. If you're in OpenStreetMap and you see a map like this, the edit button, which you need to click, is totally grayed out. It won't let you edit anything from this large of a frame rate. So you really have to zoom into any random spot and then hit edit in the top left. Once you do that, it'll actually open up a map where you can edit the map, but we're just trying to get to the tutorial right now. So on the right of your screen, you'll see this book with a little question mark symbol on it. If you click that, there's a link to get you right to the walkthrough tutorial. Once you click that, you're in it.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
I keep trying to like make a road. Like it's like this little dirt road that kind of leads to this building. I type in, so I make the line and then I type in road where it says in like the little magnifying glasses beside of it. And then on top of it, it says 34 results for road, but it doesn't show me any results. So I can't figure out how to just like mark it as a road.
So I'm just going to draw this line as an example. So here's kind of a road, right?
Yeah.
You're going to label the feature. Oh, it's not giving me any choices either.
Yeah, mine's like that. So how would do you just have to not count that? Mine's doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, so click the road again. I think it was just messing up that time. So try that. And then it'll say feature type line. I'm still not doing it. Let me try something.
And then that just takes you right back to there. And then you just do the same thing over again. Not very helpful.
I'm seeing the issue. Let me try refreshing it. Is anyone else having this issue?
I mean, my area is kind of in the middle of nowhere. I found one building and like I'm trying to mark this like single road, but most of it's just farm. Peter Aragon said he's having the same issue.
Oh, I see the thing here. The instructions are actually telling us to focus solely on buildings. The only thing we can do with roads is adjust ones that are already there. So say if this point was off, you could just drag the point a little bit more.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
we're just focusing on building or correcting any roads that are already there. To get to the Maxar premium imagery, we're going to go to this button on the right side that looks like a layers button. So once you click that, it's called background settings in this one. But once you click that, it'll come up with a list of imagery, and the instructions were to use this Maxar premium imagery. So one more time to get to the imagery, you click on this button over here that's kind of like 3 squares stacked on top of each other. And from there, you can select the Maxar premium imagery. OpenStreetMap gets pretty competitive for some people. I know that they have a list of ranking out there right here. Some people are spending their entire day making contributions to OpenStreetMap. So right here, the top user for today has created over 100,000 points on the map. And he's working in Paraguay.
I'm just a little frustrated we can't create roads because this one doesn't even have any roads mapped on it, like main roads, not even just like dirt roads.
It says that the roads are being completed in another project.
Oh, okay. So that'll be worked on eventually, I guess.
Yeah.
And also, it could be that the roads are going to come from Belize's Land Information Center, because that might be the most accurate and up-to-date source. So
that's pretty likely.
Yeah.
So usually as part of a mapathon, what we do is we'll split people into groups of 5 and have everybody compete for who can create the most edits in the allotted time. So we would have like 20 minutes left here. Students would just be rushing to get as many points down as possible. And then there's a way to record it through the OSM stats. Oh, just a reminder, when you're working on an area that's kind of populated, like the one I'm working with, make sure that you save often. You don't want anything to mess up.
Mason, how does the tasking manager, well, who comes up with the ideas of the different projects? Is it the locality? Is it the country? Is it a nonprofit group or humanitarian group?
It can be all of the above. For this one, it looks like it's done by some sort of health agency, but I've seen other projects done by local small governments of just some, say, developing nation that just needs mapping data for their city. You'll have large cities in the Philippines requesting information on like the buildings and the slums of their cities. Not just governments, though, they also have so humanitarian organizations like the Red Cross posts a lot to here, trying to find information on especially roadways following a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
So about any organization can post tasks on here.
Mm-hmm.
And then students, individuals from all over the globe will try to work on them.
Even our agencies that we had here today, like the LIC and NERGIST, they could use this as a platform if they wanted to get more, community involvement with mapping a specific project.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that's what I was kind of going for, is that, LIC or NERGIST could say, yep, let's try an area and see how good the data is.
Right, I think Alfred mentioned that northern Belize is really undermapped, so I think this is in northern Belize, maybe.
I think it is, Orange Walk, yeah.
Yeah, so people are already kind of utilizing it.
So Mason,
Yes.
I'm clear. So any organization can create an account and create a project, and with that make a request for support with regards to mapping for the project.
I think you have to register with Hot OSM first. That's not
Okay.
really much of a process, but you just kind of have to define what organization it is that you're working for and what you plan to use the data for. And then after they accept you, you should be able to just start creating posts requesting data.
Okay, thanks.
And then does YouthMappers, will they then go and choose different projects through the tasking manager, or do they come up with something separate, or both?
Most of the time we work through the tasking manager. At least that's what my chapter here at Texas Tech has always done.
Uh-huh.
But when I was an officer, I wouldn't necessarily choose them based off need. I would choose them based off just which one sounded the most fun. So there was one project that I remember we were working on. It was like it's called like the Misty Mountain in Peru, which was had been experiencing like some seismic activity, so they were like not sure if there's going to be a volcanic eruption sometime soon. So they wanted a detailed map of the city to make sure that everyone was accounted for and they knew how to reach everyone who may need help if the volcano suddenly erupted. I chose it because it was called the Misty Mountain, and I'm a huge Lord of the Rings nerd, so I couldn't resist at that point.
Mason, at what point does a project close? So, okay, it's established, mapping
So
for a particular area for a particular purpose.
the
At
project
what
will either
point does it
close at
close?
yeah, it depends on who's the one who issued the task. This one doesn't set a specific date. So what'll happen is it will remain open until every square has been marked, validated, ready for, well, first it's had mapping done, then it's requires validation. After it's been validated, finally the map is done. So it'll stay open until that point, until every square has been validated or until the project manager closes it. They also have other programs for faster editing. So the online one that you're using in a browser right now, that's definitely the easiest one to get doing people introduced onto. But they also have a 4 download version called JOSM or JOSM, and it allows you to make edits a lot quicker. I think the biggest advantage of it is you're able to copy and paste features a lot more easily. So if you have an extremely uniform neighborhood that just has square buildings of all the exact same size, you can just run in and copy paste tons of squares over the map and get plenty of edits that way. Yeah, I found some imagery that has some cloud cover, and well, you can see through this one pretty well. If you want to be sure, you can pick another set of imagery. It's pretty close to the desired one, and see if you can't map the stuff that's hidden under the layers of cloud. The problem with this one is that the imagery is taken at different times. So this Maxar standard imagery is more recent than this Bing imagery. You can actually see some of these buildings under construction just by switching back and forth between them.
On that
So it's
point,
just,
Nathan,
yes?
I'm happy you said that. Are we able to access the metadata for the imagery so that we can see which one is most current and then select that one to use than just using this, than just visually assessing what's happening with the imagery and to see which one is most current? Is metadata available for the background imagery?
I know that it's possible, but it would take me a minute to remind myself how to do it. But you can download the data from at any point prior to like an editing session. I think they update their website like either every day or every week. But at that point, you can download the data and see how it's changed over that short period. But allow me to look that up real quick and see if I can't find anything.
And continuing on that, Nathan, with respect to the mappers, is there a standard in terms of what most basic of basic metadata has to be reflected for all the mapping that is done?
You're asking if there's a standard for the mappers who can participate in a project?
Metadata. So it's not just mapping in terms of digitizing, but is it a requirement for metadata to also be provided for what is mapped?
I believe so. So they'll have, yeah, they have open source data and metadata layers available.
Jason, when you run a mapathon, do you usually run it for like 3 or 4 hours, 5, 6 hours, or how does it work?
It really depends. So if we're doing it within the school, like if we're getting teachers on board, trying to get students extra credit or whatever opportunities, if there's been like some big crisis, then if we're holding it at school, it'll be like a 3-hour event, sort of like this one, maybe a little more streamlined. We're very lucky to have had guest speakers this time. But usually we would just jump straight into the mapathon and we'd have 3 hours to devote to working on it. But if it's just, say, me and the other officers just want to do it some night, then yeah, we could just hop on for an hour or whatever we feel like to get a little work done.
Okay.
At my school in the past, they've had it so that people can just come and go whenever they want, because you know you can do the walkthrough and then just kind of work on it at your own pace. And usually it's like an all-day thing.
We also get Chad Blevins from USAID attending a lot. And he'll talk to our attendees about internship opportunities and all the projects they're working on. So it's really cool to have someone working on the inside of these humanitarian organizations kind of guiding the process. Now, if you want to download OpenStreetMap's data, like if you want to find out, oh, the number of buildings in a city or something, and you know that an area has been mapped pretty well, what you can do is you can actually zoom into the selected area and you click export. It'll give you the dimensions of the screen at first, but you can also manually adjust the area that you want to download from. And then all you have to do is click export and it'll begin downloading the layer data. Really useful for projects that are trying to determine like the land use change of, say, a city that's been growing a lot. I know that one of the other grad students in my department supplemented their remote sensing data with some OpenStreetMap data that had been updated over the past 20 years to see how the city of Dallas had changed with its rising population.
Okay, so in addition to the link that was just shared for the evaluation form, just advising that there is a massive open online course that's happening next year, and it is focused on nature-based solutions for disaster and climate resilience, and targeted for any and everyone who wants to contribute, no matter how small, to the whole reduction, move towards helping to reduce the occurrence of different types of natural disasters via natural-based solutions. So, encouraging persons, I'm going to put the link in the chat. You can sign up and you can register to be a part of that course that's happening next year. They haven't finalized the date as yet, but it's good to register from now. And then with that, when it is fully open and they finalize the date, they'll be providing you with the information in terms of when it is and the duration and all of that. So as a global community, of which all of us are impacted by various forms of disaster, I'm encouraging us to be a part of this global initiative for each person to learn how it is that we can, in our own little space, contribute to reducing disasters globally. So I want to place the link in the chat. We're also going to be encouraging our NERGIST members to be a part of this course to make them more aware of what is happening globally in terms of research and also work that is being done to help reduce disasters and contribute to climate resilience. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. I've done a couple projects for are using MOOC resources before, and they have some like really interesting work that they're doing.
Mason, would this be a good time for if people have questions, comments, want to continue working? How could they continue working after, you know, we end this workshop right now? And everybody
Well, yeah.
can
So
download.
so if you have,
yeah.
go ahead.
Let me finish. Everybody can download the chat if you just. You probably all know this in Zoom, but if you don't, the three little dots in the chat at the far bottom right hand corner, you can download the chat and get everybody's links and or information and the links to everything. So, anyways, go on, Mason.
Sure. So if you have any questions, go ahead and shoot them at me now. You can work on OSM data anytime. It's almost always running. So if you ever just feel like creating some mapping data, I usually don't unless my friends are around, but it can be kind of fun. And then if you have any interest in starting a YouthMappers chapter where students are given fellowship opportunities and other projects like that, they participate in these humanitarian efforts. If you're interested in any of that, just email me or ask questions about it now, and I can give you the answers.
Mason, did you put your email in the chat? I know you've been super busy running it. That's why I wanted to remind you.
I can put it in again.
Yeah, you're doing a great job running this. So I know it's hard to be doing 5 things at once.
It's a little different than doing it in person. Okay, well, now is a good time to start wrapping up your sections. I would highly recommend saving it, and if it's not complete, just submit task as not complete, and someone else will pick it up from there. I want to thank everyone, especially our speakers, for coming and giving lectures on what they work on and how they can use OSM data. I want to thank all of our attendees for participating and contributing to this map. I'm sure the state of Belize definitely is interested in the product that we put out there. And I want everyone to please fill out the workshop evaluation form that Simone posted. I know the feedback would be very, very welcome. So thank you everyone for coming.
And one more thing, there's inside the evaluation sheet, if you want a link to where we're going to post the recording, please put that down and put your email in there and we'll make sure we get you the link. So, but thank everyone. Thank you very much, Mason, Dan, and Sawyer for doing a fabulous job. And I hope that all of you continue your participation in volunteer geographic information and continue working in the field. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for accommodating and thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night. There's one question about adding a post office. You have an answer to that one, Mason?
I can't believe there's not a post office feature type, honestly.
Ah.
Maybe it's under a different title. Maybe what's going on is that just that in that map, yeah, there is a post office option. So what's happening is just in the task that we're working on, they don't allow you to name anything as anything but a building. So they won't let you name it as a post office unless you come into it through OpenStreetMap instead of through the task manager. But that would actually be a really good thing to do. Go into the actual OpenStreetMap and input it as a post office.